ChatGerry, 3 Deaths of Japanese Generals and 3 End-Stage Disease Patterns. A VPT Energy, Medicine, and Psychology View, number 1472, VPT Sharp 033, December 20, 2025. Gerald C. Shu, EclaireMD Foundation. Category, History, VPT Methodology, Medicine, Psychology. Preface. Outside my medical research, I have always enjoyed reading history, literature, and philosophy. Recently, while reading modern Japanese military history, I encountered the life stories of 3 generals whose deaths left a strong impression on me. Their final decisions were very different, yet each faced an irreversible situation with no remaining options. As a medical researcher, I naturally asked myself a familiar question: can these very different historical deaths be understood using the same tools I used to study chronic disease, stress, and human psychological behavior? That curiosity led to this article. I built this article step by step. First, I introduce the Viscoplastology Theory or VPT framework. Then I briefly review the backgrounds of these 3 historical figures, examine the events leading up to their deaths, including their final written statements, and then map their terminal patterns to psychology and end-stage chronic disease behavior. This approach allows readers to clearly follow the logic. Introduction. In this article, I examine 3 Japanese military leaders, Korechika Anami, Maresuke Nogi, and Hideki Tojo. I do not analyze them to judge their politics or morality. Instead, I focus on how each responded to irreversible stress. At the end of life, their final decisions represent 3 distinct stress resolution patterns: responsibility integration, meaning or attachment transfer, and defensive overload. These same patterns repeatedly appear in patients with advanced chronic diseases and in severe psychological stress responses. Although a battlefield and a hospital room look very different, the underlying stress strain, energy and system behavior can be remarkably similar. Death is often described as a biological failure. I view it differently. I see death as the final geometry and energy state of a long-term accumulated stress-strain process. Framework. In VPT language, stress represents irreversible external reality, such as military defeat or terminal illness. Strain represents internal cognitive, emotional, and behavioral responses to that stress, such as mortality or death. VPT energy is the accumulation of stress and strain over time. The final outcome depends on whether this energy is integrated, transferred, or trapped until collapse. Biomedicine adds the pathophysiological layer, including nervous system balance, stress hormones, sleep stability, inflammation, and metabolism. Psychology adds the mental or emotional layer, including acceptance or denial of reality, identity stability, emotional regulation, and attachment patterns. Case 1. Korechika Anami, responsibility integration pattern. Korechika Anami was Japan's Minister of War in 1945. He stood at the center of the final surrender decision. By August 1945, Japan's defeat was absolute. Although Anami initially opposed unconditional surrender, once the emperor made the final decision, he accepted it fully and enforced it. On the day the surrender was announced, Anami committed seppuku, suicide by abdominal cutting, and left a brief note. In it, he accepted responsibility, expressed absolute loyalty to the emperor, and took the failure of the nation upon himself. From a VPT view, Anami faced total and irreversible stress. He did not spread blame or defend his reputation. He absorbed responsibility into himself. As a result, stress energy stopped escalating, leading to a controlled ending rather than chaos. In medicine, this resembles patients who accept a terminal diagnosis early, simplify decisions, avoid futile treatments, and move smoothly into palliative care. Their disease progresses, but mental suffering does not keep increasing. Case 2. Maresuke Nogi, meaning transfer pattern. Maresuke Nogi was a Meiji-era war hero, whose identity was built around loyalty to Emperor Meiji. In 1912, the emperor died. This was not a national collapse, but for Nogi, it was the loss of his core, meaning, attachment to the Emperor Meiji. On the day of the emperor's funeral, Nogi and his wife committed ritual suicide. His final attitude emphasized devotion and loyalty rather than personal failure. In VPT terms, stress was not absorbed through responsibility. Instead, it was redirected into attachment and symbolic reunion. Energy was transferred outward rather than integrated. In medicine, this pattern appears in patients whose identity is strongly relational. They may focus on reunion, legacy, or symbolic continuation. They can appear peaceful, but acceptance is meaning or attachment based rather than reality integrated. Case 3. Hideki Tojo, defensive overload pattern. Hideki Tojo was Japan's prime minister during World War II. After Japan's defeat in 1945, he attempted suicide, failed, and was later tried and executed from 1948 to 1948. Until his death, he denied personal responsibility and blamed historical circumstances. From a VPT perspective, Tojo resisted stress instead of integrating it. Responsibility was externalized, and identity was defended. Stress energy accumulated without release, leading to forced termination. In medicine, this resembles patients who deny prognosis, resist reality, pursue aggressive treatments late, and experience chaotic and exhausting end stages. Conclusion: these three deaths illustrate three end-stage patterns: integration, meaning transfer, and overload. The same patterns appear in chronic disease. Death itself is not the key difference. How irreversible stress is handled over time determines the final outcome. VPT helps us see that end-stage suffering is not only biological failure, it is the visible result of accumulated stress and unresolved strain. The way a system lives determines how it ends. Disclaimer: this content is for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights belong to the author, Gerald C. Shu.